Welcome to Chalk Talk, a weekly preview of West Tennessee football featuring the JSUN sports team on JSUN.com.
Hi everybody, welcome to week 4 of Chalk Talk here at JSUN.com. My name is Craig Thomas alongside the high school sports columnist Brandon Shields. Lots of good games to talk about this week as you had been the last few weeks. We want to first off just kind of giving you a preview of some of the coverage you can look forward to. If you're a regular reader of the Jackson Sun, and obviously we hope you are, you've seen lots of cool feature stories throughout the week and the last few weeks. I'm looking at some of the players, coaches, and other figures related to high school sports here in West Tennessee. Actually, interesting Faith in Practice in the Thursday morning edition. A young man from Trenton Peabody. I think that's something you'll definitely want to read to find out a little bit about him and kind of why his story is special. We'll have coverage as far as game-related stuff as we get later in the week. Some game previews. You talked with Eric Swenson at Huntington a little bit. They have a big game against Mile, and then Friday morning in the Jackson Sun will have the Blitz, the preview capsules of all the games involving teams in the area, and then stats as well for all the schools that call it in their stats. You can kind of get an idea who the top passers, rushers, defensive players have been.
Had a lot of teams submit stats this week, so the leaders will be like
pretty legit.
I mean, the ones in past weeks have always been legit, but
yeah,
a little more legit this week.
Yeah, so good on the schools for you guys sending in the stats. Definitely something obviously to check out there as well. Then Friday night we'll have all these a lot of these games covered really right here in the city and throughout the area. Stories, photos, and photo galleries. Maybe some video if we can. So lots of cool stuff to check out Friday night on JacksonSun.com, and then Saturday morning in your newspaper as well. So with that, we'll get right to it and start with the first game we're going to talk about right here in the city. A couple private schools going at it as USJ visits Jackson Christian. What stands out to you about this game?
Well, this game, quite honestly, hadn't been very competitive the last few years. USJ has pretty much owned this matchup dating back to when they were both in Division II, and USJ or Jackson Christian would sometimes compete for that third place spot in the region behind USJ and St. George's, but hadn't been many times lately in the last few years. It's been close. Is it going to be different this year? It has potential to. Jackson Christian showed me something last week in their win over Halls. Halls came in with a 2-0 record. Jackson Christian came in with an 0-2 record. And kind of what I thought could happen if Jackson Christian was going to win did happen. They kind of put everything together and played 4 quarters of quality defense and consistent offense that kept the ball out of Hall's hands for the most part, and they came out with a win. Can they do that this week? Maybe, but they're going to have to do a lot to stop Mitchell Bodiford and Easton Underwood. Easton Underwood accounted for 5 touchdowns last week, and he didn't even play an entire half, I don't think. Granted, it was against Tipton Rosemart, but still, that kind of production, that kind of time is pretty impressive, no matter who it's against. They got some quality receivers, Wells Smith, Holland Hawks, just a number of guys, a number of different options for him to throw to. Jackson Christian's going to have to cover them all and cover them all well.
Brandon, I'm going to be at Trinity Christian Academy where the Lions winless to this point. We know how good Andrew Goldsmith is, how much of a factor he can be. I mean, South Gibson, on the other hand, coming in undefeated to this point. How much of the key for South Gibson is just containing Andrew Goldsmith, and how much of it is maybe something else?
Oh, that is the key. Because I'm not sure South Gibson is as good as the teams that TCA has lost to. So Goldsmith is averaging over 200 yards rushing a game. He's their leading tackler on defense. And even in the USJ game that I was at, he had a couple of big plays that accounted for touchdowns. He had an interception that led to a touchdown. He had a fumble recovery that he returned for a touchdown. But those teams were still good enough they were able to say, okay, Goldsmith, you do what you do, but nobody else is going to do anything. South Gibson, I'm not sure they have that kind of talent. I think Goldsmith is good enough on some teams below a certain level that he can, I don't want to say beat them by himself, but TCA can win based on his production alone. I don't know if South Gibson's below that line or not. So they really need to do their best to make sure that he doesn't do a lot. Because he does, while he's averaging over 200 yards, he's got the potential, if he's playing against a team that can't stop him, he's got the potential to run for 300 or 400 yards. As soon as I said that, that sounded like a really big number in my mind. But I don't think that's much of an exaggeration. This athlete is that good. So South Gibson's going to have to do their best to make sure he stays hemmed in as much as possible.
When Bolivar goes to Southside, if you're at that game, you know, these first 3 games we're talking about all happening in the city. When Bolivar goes to Southside, I think we're going to see 2 teams that haven't done a whole lot the last couple of years, but I get the sense that both of them really truly expects they've got a different kind of team this year, in the sense of like different than what they've shown in the past, the recent past.
Right.
And I think obviously that's kind of exciting. Do you sense one having the upper hand in this game?
I want to say Bolivar, but if I say that, I'm sure that some of our friends at Southside will be like, oh, you're just against Southside all the time. Okay, then I'm against Southside all the time, because I really think that Bolivar does have an athletic advantage to this. Not saying necessarily that they're a better team, but I think you just kind of look at the athletes that they put out on the field compared to, as far as a full collection of athletes that Bolivar puts out on the field compared to the full collection of athletes that Southside puts on the field. Bolivar just looks more intimidating, I guess, or more dangerous. One thing about that, just kind of building on the point about different teams this year, they are coming into this game in week 4 with a combined 5 wins. Last year when they played each other coming into the game with a combined 3 wins, and that was in the last week of the season. So they are different teams. They are playing, I think they're playing more winnable competition, obviously. But yeah, they are playing with more confidence as well, and that's that confidence thing can really help. It also helps to be playing Obion County and instead of Crockett County to open the season. But as far as the actual matchup this week, Southside's going to have to stop the athletes. I think they got the scheme to do that. Coach Moore, Brian Moore, and his coaching staff, Tyler Reeder, Brent McNeil, that whole group, they got a good enough line of strategy that they can contain that kind of athlete. They said Obion County is more athletic than their 0-3 record would suggest at this point. And that was kind of a worry for them, particularly in the first game of the season. That kind of game planning was able to kept them in check and kept the game within reach, so that when they got that late turnover, the touchdown that Cade Willingham scored actually mattered. So they're going to have to rely on that, and Bolivar's just going to have to rely on their speed and not turn the ball over to give themselves a better chance to win.
Leaving Jackson, going to Milan for a game of a couple of traditional powers. Huntington at Milan. Huntington, you got a team that obviously a good history of success. Last year did not really finish the way they wanted to. A pretty early exit there to eventual state champion Peabody. But you talked with Eric Swinson. He seems pretty happy with where his team is at this early stage, playing a Milan team that admittedly did not have its best effort against a Liberty team that looks really strong right now. So a couple teams that have shown maybe some good things to a certain extent, but how do you see this one playing out?
I remember last week, Craig, you were at the game between Milan and Liberty. I actually texted with Coach Morris at Milan a little bit late Friday night, and I asked him, I said, is Liberty as good as advertising? He said, yeah, we couldn't stop them.
He's right.
But I think that the competition will kind of come back down to earth this week. I'm not saying that Huntington's a bad team. I'm just saying that probably size-wise, athleticism-wise, this would be a better matchup for Milan. Now that Huntington offense versus Milan defense is going to be a fun matchup to watch because of what Huntington has accomplished this year in the first 2 games, pulling away from Camden late, dominating Collinwood. They should have dominated anyways. Let's not read too much into that score, 42-6. But the offense is doing what they need to be doing. In the story that was in Thursday's paper, their 2 quarterbacks, Cade Pierce and Dylan Johnson, they're doing what they need to be doing. Getting the ball where it's supposed to get to, where it's running, or twice a game passing it. They're still being effective with it. And I think it will be a test for Milan, but considering the fact that they played Milan and they played Peabody, they're not going to see anything this week that they haven't, as far as physically. They're not going to see anything they haven't dealt with already.
Lots of good games within close driving distance of Jackson. If you haven't noticed, 3 right here in the city, one at Milan, which obviously isn't too far away, and another one if you've never been there, especially at Lexington, a place that gets a lot of good crowds. And I think you're going to see some good football there as they host the Haywood Tomcats, who are having a pretty strong start to the year. Haywood and Lexington definitely have proven some strengths up to this point. Lexington had a rough week against Hardin County. The team looks pretty strong. Do you feel like Haywood has a distinct advantage in this game, or is it not quite that simple?
I'm not sure if anybody has an advantage in this one just because both teams are so good. I will say this. Lexington, because they took a loss in their first region game, I hate to say that anybody this early in the season has their back up against the wall. But when you look at the fact that they've already taken a loss, they're playing Haywood this week, and they still have games remaining against Crockett County, Northside, and then the rest of there's other good teams in the region. This is almost a must-win for them.
Really?
I'm not saying it's a make or break that if they lose, they're not going to make the playoffs or anything like that, but they want to stay as level with everybody. They don't want to have to be digging themselves out of a hole and spend the whole month of October, are we going to be in the playoffs or not? Taking a loss here would definitely put them in that position that they would possibly have that worry. Is that an advantage? Is it a disadvantage? I know there are some teams that react well to that situation and they want to stay out of it, and they come out playing to keep themselves out of it, and that may actually work in their favor because this is going to be Haywood's first competitive game. JSUN, they beat 53-0. Ovine County, they beat 49-10. Neither of those teams have a win. With the exception of Ovine County playing against Southside, neither of those teams have been competitive with anybody. So this will be a chance where we see exactly what Haywood has got, and it's going to be interesting to see how that offense does against a team that has the ability to hit them in the mouth and see what they come back with.
All right, Brandon, any other thoughts going into week 4?
No, I mean, Region 4A, or Region 7 4A, which is Haywood and Lexington and Northside, who's going up to Ovine County, and the other teams like that. Them and Region 7 1A with Peabody and Union City and Humboldt, they're back in region play. Otherwise, everybody else is out of region play. Some fans may say that's a week that we can take where we don't worry about the playoffs or not, but still want to get better and still want to keep momentum going for those teams, and the ones that have lost and hadn't won yet, they need something positive to build on when they get back into region play the following week.
All right, well, lots of things to keep your eye on, lots to look forward to. If you're out at the games, we hope to see you there. And like I said, follow our coverage in the paper, online, and on Twitter. JS editor Brandon, lots of updates from him and the other guys as well. So thanks for watching, thanks for reading, and have a great week.
See ya.